The AI revolution just hit a wall. It doesn't need better code, it needs massive power. Welcome to the $100 billion nuclear race.
Welcome to this explainer. Right now, in August 2026, we are witnessing a massive, unfolding tectonic shift in AI infrastructure, and it is absolutely dominating the tech headlines. If you've been following the industry, you already know we've crossed a critical threshold. The global artificial intelligence race? Well, it's completely transformed. It is no longer just a software challenge. Actually, scratch that. It hasn't been just software for a while, but now it has become a full-blown, unprecedented energy and physical infrastructure war. Today, we're going to unpack exactly what is happening behind closed doors, why the traditional data center model is completely broken, and how tech giants are making these jaw-dropping physical pivots just to keep the next generation of artificial superintelligence online.
To really grasp the physical reality of this boom, you only need to know one staggering number: 10 gigawatts. This is not some theoretical projection for a distant future, okay? This is the sheer amount of continuous power demanded right now by the next generation of superintelligence compute clusters. We're talking about physical factories that require an immense, unyielding flow of electricity just to train the models of tomorrow. The physical footprint of AI has literally exploded, and it's reshaping global energy economics as we speak.
So here's how we're going to break down this secret infrastructure war. We'll start with the new AI bottleneck, then we'll examine a $100 billion megaproject, look at why the industry is suddenly going nuclear, and wrap up with what this all means for the race to artificial general intelligence.
All right, let's jump into part one, the new AI bottleneck. This is a massive shock to the industry. For years, the entire conversation around AI was centered on algorithms and securing enough chip supply. If you had the code and the silicon, you were winning. But here in 2026, the paradigm has completely flipped. Model training speed is no longer constrained by algorithm design or hardware shortages. Instead, companies have been forced to shift their core focus entirely toward time to energy and power procurement. The big question isn't how smart is our code anymore, it's how many gigawatts of electricity can we physically secure?
The absolute bottom line is this. Power availability has officially surpassed chip supply as the primary obstacle to artificial superintelligence. Securing enormous amounts of physical energy is now the absolute prerequisite for training frontier models. You just can't train the next frontier model without a multi-gigawatt compute cluster. And obviously, you can't run one without a massive dedicated power source. The capital expenditures of the past have been completely overshadowed by the sheer physical necessity of just keeping the lights on. It is the single biggest bottleneck standing in our way.
Moving right along to part two, the $100 billion megaproject. Let's see how this bottleneck transforms into the largest single infrastructure commitment in the history of the tech sector.
$100 billion. That is the staggering financial weight NVIDIA is throwing behind a landmark strategic partnership with OpenAI. This isn't just a software investment, this is a massive physical infrastructure megaproject. To put that into perspective, tech giants are now making capital investments that literally rival the defense budgets of entire nations, all directed at solving this energy and compute crisis. Together, they are deploying an absolutely massive compute capacity powered by the NVIDIA Vera Rubin platform. Their ultimate goal? To stand up a dedicated 10-gigawatt supercluster. This requires drawing unprecedented amounts of continuous energy. They aren't just building a data center anymore. They're essentially building an entire localized economy of compute, designed from the ground up to handle the immense data throughput required for the next massive leap in machine intelligence.
Now, let's ground those abstract numbers in reality. That single 10-gigawatt supercluster requires the equivalent continuous energy needed to run nearly 8 million average American homes. Just think about that for a second. 8 million homes. That's a massive city's worth of power dedicated entirely to a single compute cluster. You can't just plug this into a municipal wall outlet, right? If you try to hook this up to a regional utility grid, the grid literally breaks. Regional utility grids simply cannot support this kind of load, which forces a complete rethink of where these tech giants get their power. Which brings us perfectly to part three, going nuclear for AI. Because traditional utility grids are reaching their absolute breaking points, we have to explore how these tech giants are pivoting to a radical off-grid solution. To solve this incredible energy deficit, AI developers are driving a global renaissance in nuclear power. How? Through small modular reactors, or SMRs. These are compact, zero-carbon nuclear reactors placed directly adjacent to data centers. Why is this such a game changer? Well, renewable sources like wind and solar are intermittent.
They don't always blow, they don't always shine. But AI factories need round-the-clock, unyielding power without grid constraints or transmission losses. SMRs provide that perfect, localized, continuous energy.
There's a very specific playbook for this new infrastructure war, and it's unfolding in 3 distinct steps. Step 1, tech giants partner with major energy providers like NextEra and Brookfield. Step 2, they quietly acquire decommissioned industrial facilities, places that already have some heavy infrastructure footprint. And Step 3, they aggressively deploy these SMRs to convert those sites into dedicated, off-grid nuclear AI campuses. They're not waiting for the public grid to catch up, they are building their own power ecosystem from scratch.
And listen, it's not just OpenAI and NVIDIA doing this. The entire industry, Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft, they're all engaged in this massive land and power grab. We're seeing multi-billion-dollar, multi-gigawatt campuses being built across North America and Europe. We're even seeing massive 5-gigawatt hyperclusters planned for places like Louisiana. The race to secure real estate and energy contracts is fundamentally reshaping global energy economics. If you're a major tech player today and you aren't building a nuclear-powered campus, you are already falling behind.
Finally, let's wrap up with Part 4, the race for AGI. Let's look at how this physical energy war fundamentally changes the timeline and the ultimate ownership of artificial general intelligence.
It all boils down to this new equation: energy sovereignty equals AGI ownership. In the past, we all thought the first company to achieve artificial general intelligence would just be the one with the best programmers or the most efficient algorithms. But the paradigm has completely flipped. The entities who successfully control dedicated gigawatt-scale power generation will literally be the only ones physically capable of training true superintelligence. If you don't control the power, you don't control the AI. It really is that simple.
And that brings up a really fascinating consequence. The boundary between technology companies and utility providers has completely dissolved. Because of this scramble for gigawatts, tech companies are effectively mutating. They aren't just software developers creating apps or language models anymore. By funding nuclear reactors, acquiring land, and managing massive energy grids, they are taking on the role of sovereign utility providers. They are becoming entirely vertically integrated, from the nuclear fission creating the electricity all the way up to the neural networks generating the intelligence.
Which leaves us with a critical question to ponder. If the absolute prerequisite for achieving AGI is the control of private, localized nuclear power grids, who will ultimately govern the future of artificial intelligence? We're moving into an era where massive tech corporations wield the infrastructural power of sovereign nation-states. So are we prepared for tech CEOs to hold the keys to both artificial superintelligence and the nuclear codes that power it? Thanks for joining this explainer. Keep your eyes on the grid, because that is exactly where the future of technology is being decided.